We start off with Sarvinatha, just in relation to technology-facilitated gender-based violence.
Yes.
You started off in 2006 with the police force, cybercrime unit. If you can give a highlight based on the legality of it, what is it?
Yes, Vijay, thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this discussion this afternoon. I think way back in 2006, there were less technologies that were available in Fiji. Most of it were used for business purposes. Government organization used most of it. But for individuals, there were not very much that were available. And most of the mobile phones that were used were analog. You know, the push button one where the Alcatel, you can throw it to a dog and it will cry and die. Those are the archaic technologies that were used back then. But as we progress throughout the years, one of our first cases was based on pornography, where university students were exploited. But the young girls at the university were exploited by very senior people that exploited them for sexual favors. This was one of the first cases that we addressed. And I know if you will look back at your archives, your news archives, it was highlighted back then. It was one of the big cases that we highlighted. But it increases after the introduction of social media. Social media was introduced in 2009 in Fiji. Then all of a sudden the amount of online crimes started to increase because it covers a whole lot of aspects. But in terms of gender-based violence, it started with technology, even though it wasn't clearly defined back then. But it has its presence surrounding technology. The limitation of devices in certain areas, even in homes, have caused some of the strenuous relationship in the individual homes. Also, the use, the platform that were introduced by these devices, that is widely used now as social media platforms. These have caused some of the abuse, online harassment, and all of these that have caused, even ended up in a very bad situation where people have intended to take their life or some have lost their life. So as technology and development grows, so does the impact of how it impacts individual lives also grows with it. And this is part of the development that not only Fiji is undergoing, but all of the developed countries who use technology. But we are fortunate that we have such advocates in Fiji. The Fiji Women's Crisis Center, Miss Ali sitting here, and the Online Safety Commission that have been so vocal about this ongoing abuse. Even though the dynamics have changed, the platform has changed, it goes online now, but the impact of it on individual life is still the same. They still faces abuse. Most even have lost their life.
We'll go further into the challenges that are being faced, yes. And no doubt when this continues to emerge and increase, there will be challenges.
Yes.
I'll get Shamima into the discussions. You have been a strong advocate in relation to gender-based violence, Shamima, and over the years, as technology has grown, so have the challenges grown and more abuse?
Yes, definitely it has. And I just wanted to state that when we talk about, we have been calling it online violence throughout, because that's what it is. And we see that as an extension of all forms of violence against women and girls and children that is going on in our country. And as you might know, we've said it often enough, we have one of the highest rates of violence against women, what is called gender-based violence. The reason we don't use GBV is because that then covers up, it ignores the gendered aspect of violence, of this type of violence, because most of the violence, because we live in patriarchy, most of the violence is perpetrated by males on females because of the gender inequalities, all the patriarchal, the social norms that are there, and so on, that treats women as second-class citizens, and so on. And that's another lesson, but I can go on and on. But so we use violence against women and girls. And this is just an extension of that violence. Our rate, national survey of 2011, over 10 years ago, shows that intimate partner violence, 64% of women suffer from domestic violence, from physical, sexual, and emotional violence in our country. That is very high. It's actually double the global average. And other countries around the Pacific are the same, Kiribati, Solomons, Vanuatu. So this is an extension of that. It is not a standalone form of violence. And now we have adopted other terms, like terms that have been introduced to us. Technology facilitated GBV, abuse. And so people get confused about these terms too. So I just want to say to people, it's online violence against women and girls and children, of course, and there's and many aspects to it now. It is getting worse, and technology can be a very good thing, and particularly for women and girls and everybody else. We learn so much from it, and so on. But it can also be very detrimental to a lot of people, and particularly to women and girls.
Online Safety Commission is fairly new, Tajeshwari. But we know there's a law in place that was passed in Parliament. If you can tell us, based on your understanding, how, for example, Shamima has brought in the issue that it's just online violence. How do you see online violence versus the technology-facilitated gender-based violence?
So, thank you so much. Based on what Sabe and Ms. Shamima has mentioned, I think just to echo on that, in terms of technology-facilitated gender-based violence is something that actually refers to violence and harassment or abuse that is perpetrated against individuals based on their gender. So it's mostly like gendered aspect using the online platforms, and specifically I may talk about is violence that happens with women and girls on social media platforms. And this is this situation in Fiji is now increasing, and it's common, and perhaps becomes an alarming issue for us as well, because the most issues, I would just basically touch on what we receive and based on the facts that we receive. And this is in terms of revenge porn, if you have heard about this, and we term this as image-based abuse at Online Safety Commission, but basically this is like revenge porn. So issues that arise between a man and woman, that is husband and wife. So most issues that we receive is domestic issues that is relevant to what happens or goes online, basically. So if I may give an example, like revenge porn that is very common and increasing, and this for instance goes to like an increase in distance relationships, and this is what we have found out, that there's like distance relationship, and what happens is they tend to share explicit photos with each other or videos, and then when there's like an issue between the partners, or when they part their ways, this is where one of the partner starts to threaten the other partner, and so this is form of revenge porn. So the other partner starts to take revenge from this one, and this is increasing in Fiji, and we have seen that a lot of cases have been reported, and the perpetrators are known, and when we ask them who, it tends to be like the partners or the ex-partners. It's not like someone who's like totally a stranger. So this is an alarming issue, because it's not coming from a stranger, it's coming from within the house, or within the family.